What's going on, everybody? This is JVP, and you're listening to another episode of the Postgame Report. So, how are you guys doing? Hopefully, well. Hopefully, everybody you love and everybody you know is safe. So, I want to just talk about video games, of course. And I've been sitting back and listening to other podcasts and YouTubers talk about this acquisition Microsoft made, this $7.5 billion acquisition to buy Bethesda and all the studios underneath them. So, some people are making assumptions. Some people are saying, "Hey, if this rumor is true that Microsoft is also looking to buy Sega, what would Sony do? How would that hinder Sony, and how would that change the outlook or the landscape of the video game industry?" So what I did was I took a look back at the Xbox 360. Now, as we know, that was really the only time the Xbox brand was like on top of the world. And they launched first before the PlayStation 3, a year ahead. They had all of these crazy ass exclusive deals, whether they were third party, whether they were first party. I mean, the lineup of games, the amount of choices you had. They had Blue Dragon if you were into RPGs or even JRPGs. They had Gears of War, Call of Duty, of course, Halo. And then you had Project Gotham Racing, and then eventually Forza. And then you had exclusive deals with EA. I mean, it was just insane. You had Bioshock launched there first, Mass Effect. It was insane. The Xbox 360, Microsoft, they really freaking went all out to ensure that the year before Sony launched, that people were going to remember and have that Xbox 360 branding in their mind. And it worked. I jumped right away into an Xbox 360. I talked about the launch and pre-ordering it. And then, of course, PlayStation priced themselves at a ridiculous bracket, $600, $700. I mean, it was amazing how expensive the PlayStation 3 was. So all that entire combination was really tough. And kudos to Sony and the people that run the PlayStation, because it looked like they were doomed. Me anyway, I assumed that Sony was going to go the way of Sega. I thought eventually Sony or the PlayStation would become a developer, and all those studios would just develop games for Xbox and Nintendo. So for the PlayStation 3 to come out the way it did in the early years, despite the juggernaut known as the Xbox 360 and the deep pockets of Microsoft. Now, once again, I don't know if you guys realize this, I am a shareholder of Microsoft stock. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have shares like Steve Ballmer or, any employee of Microsoft or former employee. I'm not going to get rich off my shares, not yet anyway. Hopefully I will. But I do have shares. I'm a shareholder of Microsoft stock. So technically I'm a shareholder. So this acquisition that Microsoft made of Bethesda is beneficial to my shares, to me. So as someone who owns a piece of Microsoft, yeah, this is an amazing move. And someone who has been, well, let me rephrase this. As someone who has had video games in my life since I was the age of 7, I don't like the fact that Microsoft could potentially buy more studios and then run it in a way that has I'm trying to word this correctly because based on how the Xbox 360 did during the last few years of the life cycle, leading into the Xbox One, based on that, I can't trust the management. I don't trust them. And I don't mean in the sense of trusting them to lie to me like people who got offended with Jim Ryan and all that stuff. No, I'm not. I'm talking about I don't trust the way they run the department. I don't trust the way they run the brand, the Xbox brand. So it's like giving someone a brand new car that has already crashed 4 cars. If they can't drive, don't give them a fucking car. Like no matter how great the car is or how much money you put into a specific car and make it look fucking beautiful, if you can't drive it, you're still going to mess it up. So the fact that Phil Spencer and crew now have more studios, what are they going to do with it? What have they done so far with the studios available to them now? People keep saying, these new studios that Microsoft purchased, they need time. Yes, absolutely. But what happened before that? What happened before that? What happened to Rare? What happened to 343? What happened to Obsidian? What happened to Lionhead? They bought that. That was a huge acquisition back in the day. What happened to them? They have closed studios that they've purchased. Why? Because Microsoft was like, you know what? There are too many heads that we have to pay, and we're paying these people for what? What have they done? Where's the finished product that justifies owning all these studios? So based on history, and we know that PlayStation has a strong history in the video games in the video game industry, and Microsoft really doesn't. Besides the Xbox 360, they haven't done shit. Because the Xbox, the original Xbox, I enjoyed it a lot. I played the shit out of it. And it came out at a weird time. So that was a good starting point. And then they made the big decision to just jump right into another generation before PlayStation. And it benefited them really well. Of course, there was the Red Rings of Death. And because Microsoft had all this money, and we're talking about, $4 billion allocated to people with the Red Rings of Death. So either they knew that this was coming, or how can you not know, right? Like, all of a sudden, $4 billion is like, all right, here's $4 billion. Give everybody new consoles. So, at that time, too, Nintendo had the Wii. And that was really the start of all the motion control stuff, motion control gaming. And it took off. In its lifespan, it has sold over 100 million. The PlayStation 3, coming out a year after the Xbox 360, has about 87, 88 million. The Xbox 360, probably the same thing. Which is crazy when you consider the astronomical start that the Xbox 360 had. We're talking about, if they had that type of support for the new Xbox coming out, the Series, holy crap, it'll be a different story. But developers jumped ship from one generation to the next. So there's, people don't look at that. And we're talking about third-party developers. And when you have marketing deals with developers, and Microsoft had the marketing deal for Call of Duty for a while. And all of a sudden it went to PlayStation. So how was it that Sony was able to, they out-dueled them through finances? No, there was something else that told Activision, you know what, let's go with this particular brand right now. Maybe it was the user base. Maybe they knew something we didn't. Maybe the policies that the Xbox was instilling to Activision. Maybe they didn't like it. Maybe they wanted some type of exclusive deal that was a lot longer than they were willing to go with. Who the hell knows? But all of a sudden, all these third-party devs were bringing out exclusive content for the PlayStation brand from one generation to the next. So that in itself, these are the people that make these games. They know more than we do. What people show us. So now Microsoft has more studios, some of the biggest, freaking most popular franchises in gaming history. Doom alone is one of the oldest video game, possibly the oldest first-person shooter on consoles. It's definitely, I don't know, between Quake, Wolfenstein. I think Wolfenstein was first. But either way, Wolfenstein is still under that umbrella. So it's amazing, right? The history that Microsoft is getting with those games. So now what? Do we wait and see? Or do we keep speculating that somehow Sony is in trouble? Also, I looked at Nintendo, like I stated before. They've had the Wii U after the Wii, which sold horribly. I think 13 million, if that, 14 maybe. And then the Nintendo Switch, which has, wow, what, over 60 million, right? Probably 62, 63. It is, a hybrid console. It is a combination of we all know that they dominate the handheld market, so they made a handheld device that can also be plugged into your TV and become a full-blown video game console. It is not the most powerful console, but their games, the Nintendo games, sell. They sell despite, and the consoles, they sell despite a lack of third-party support. And if you don't believe me, if you own a Nintendo 64 or a Wii U, a Wii, even the GameCube had little third-party support. I think it was the GameCube that actually had like a legitimate Madden support. I remember the N64 didn't. It had a Madden game, and you could actually play in first-person view, but I think they were missing like the players or the real teams or something like that. So there wasn't, even now, you don't really have a slew of third-party support for the Switch. I mean, you have way more than you have in the past, but their first-party titles come out when they're ready. Like Sony has more studios, so they bring out more first-person titles. Whereas Nintendo, it's Nintendo. There's no Sony Santa Monica. There's no Naughty Dog. There's no Insomniac. There's Nintendo, right? And got a Mario game, which they brought out, Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and remakes, and people were going crazy. They were like, oh my God, I need to buy this. Even my son called me and was like, Dad, can I buy it on my Switch? I didn't think he was going to be aware of that. So people know of the Nintendo system, and they might not talk about the Nintendo system all the time. Publishers might not even support it. Third-party publishers, that is. They might not even support it. But those same publishers are playing Nintendo games. They're going to pick up a Switch. They're going to pick up these Nintendo games. And this is not just a new generation of gamers. It's people in my age range who are running these huge publishers, these huge development teams. So we're talking about history. We're talking about established history. And of course, Nintendo is the company that reinvigorated the home console. They brought it back from the dead. And then Sony came along and just changed the game. Brought in 3D gaming with disk drives and has innovated from there. And then, of course, Microsoft did their thing, too. They came out with Xbox Live. Shit. I remember when people were laughing at Xbox for achievements. People were mocking it. And look, everybody has a reward system now. As a matter of fact, with the Xbox 360, there also came microtransactions. Because if everybody remembers Elder Scrolls, you might remember a horse armor, which I remember clearly because the developers didn't know how to charge. They didn't know what to charge for DLC, and it was just something that you could buy for your horse. And I think it was $20, something really ridiculous like that. By the way, for those that don't know, because people are suddenly complaining about $70 games, did you know that during the Xbox 360 era, well, at the very beginning, as a matter of fact, in the early years, Microsoft announced that all their games would be $60. And from there, everyone else followed. Now, why is that? Because publishers, once again, they have to pay for marketing. They have to pay for distribution. And they also have to pay for fees. So whenever a game is released, there's what? $10, $15, $20 fees per game. So a developer, or well, as a matter of fact, a publisher, not a developer, out of that $60 will get, let's say, 40. So they get to keep 40. I think years ago, wholesalers used to buy these games for $30. So, and then of course they would sell them to retailers. So there's a whole process when it comes to the pricing of video games. It's not EA saying, okay, people are mad, at Sony for making their first party titles $70, but number one, the games are expensive to make. Number two, and I read this in an article, and I'll put the link somewhere if I can for this episode, if I remember where I read it. And it's a great point. When you purchase a car, as soon as you take it out of the lot, the value decreases. When you develop a game and you throw it out in the market, same thing with movies. After its initial release, the sales drop. And then comes the freaking holiday sales, where Target will have buy 2 games, get 1 free. Or you'll have the PlayStation Store where they will have 60% off for PlayStation Plus members. So after initial release, eventually, and you see it a lot with games like Rainbow Six. I'm trying to remember the publisher, and even EA games, especially EA games, like Battlefield 1. I remember because these consoles came out in November, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, I was able to buy PlayStation games and one Xbox One game because Target had the buy 2 get 1 free. And Battlefield was on sale for like $35. So with all these games and all the sales that go on, publishers want to make as much money as soon as possible and recoup their costs. And who the hell can blame them for that? I've seen people arguing that these publishers are greedy, that they make billions of dollars a year. Of course they do. That's why they're in the fucking game to begin with, is to make fucking money. This mentality that just because a company or an industry is making billions and billions of dollars per year, that they don't have the right to continue to make more money per year. It's fucking ridiculous. And it makes me wonder, like, even though these guys are like adults, like, where the fuck their mind is at? So I don't get this whole thing, like this whole tirade that, Sony's fucked up for making their games $70, their exclusives. Right now we have NBA 2K21 at $70. The next Call of Duty is going to be $70. We don't know. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. We don't know if their fees went up. Once their fees go up, whether it's $5, whether it's $10, guess who has to pay that shit? We do. And that's not an uncommon practice. People don't realize, for example, look at Jerry Jones of the Cowboys. How fucking rich is he? You think he put that fucking stadium? You think he put all the money out of his pocket to build that stadium? If you said yes, please go on Google and take a few minutes to learn something. Because no, he didn't. You think Bill Gates, right? He went to, I wish I remember the company. I mean, the country. But he went to a very poor country. He wanted to put toilets and fresh running water for these people because their water supply was polluted by garbage. It was so much garbage that it was contaminating the water. People were getting sick. People were dying. They even showed him, and it's on Netflix. I forgot the name of it. They show him making presentations so that people can help him fund this shit. And we're talking about Bill Gates. So if you think just because EA is a multi-billion-dollar company that they have no right to increase their games to $70, man, I don't know what to say to you. I'm just glad that you're not running my finances or my company or running the country. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that, right? We live in a country that has for, centuries has not only, there's a lot of blood in the history of our country, the people taking over, and, our country was founded and stolen from the natives who lived here. And then people get pissed off that, even at present times, people, companies like Walmart are doing the same exact thing. They are invading a territory. They go into a neighborhood and they put up a Walmart, and then who suffers? The mom and pop shops that have been there for 60 fucking years. They have to close now because Walmart just opened and they're selling the same shit you sell for cheaper. But people don't get mad at that, right? But they get mad when Sony has to sell their games for $70. They're fucking in an uproar. It's unbelievable, right? I mean, I know there's video games and we don't want to think about the real world, but when you start talking about finances and business practices, then you are throwing yourself into the real world. So you got to bring real world examples into the scenario. Instead of worrying about, hey, we're going to pay $70 for these games. Are these games quality? Are they still bringing out AAA bangers? If they don't, it's time to make some fucking noise and let Sony know, hey, you're robbing us. We're not going to pay $70 for this piece of shit game. But if it's another banger like Ghost of Tsushima, then you know what? We see where that $70 is going. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Or some shit like that. Is that how you say it? I don't know. So the whole point of this particular episode was that even though Microsoft, company that I do have shares of, and Sony and Nintendo. Oh shit, I forgot about that. So all three, I have shares of all three. So either way, I'm a happy man right now. But they bought Bethesda. Great. That's great for the brand, for the Xbox brand and the Game Pass service. Is it going to, even if they bought Sega, would that put Sony and Nintendo in some type of corner and leave them out to do things they don't want to do? No, it's not. Because it comes down to whether the developers want to make their games. There's something called the lead platform. And Sony has been the lead platform for this generation. The Xbox 360 was the lead platform last generation. When that happens, that means games are centered around that particular hardware first. And if third-party developers decide to take that same route, which it sounds like they're doing it once again with the PlayStation, then it's really not going to matter. It's really not going to matter if Microsoft buys Bethesda and Sega. Now, as someone who has been gaming for a very long time, that would be the limit. I really would not want any company, any publisher to be owning all of these studios, because then you really begin to monopolize the industry and take it to a direction that you can't trust. Right now, why would I trust what the management team for Xbox is capable of doing? They were disastrous this current generation, and we're supposed to trust them with more studios and new hardware. Why? What have they done to prove that they are trustworthy? And once again, I'm not talking about Jim Ryan saying one thing and then going back and saying another. I'm not talking about that shit. Now, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to give Phil Spencer another chance. Not that my opinion really matters, number one, but I'll give him a year. Let's see what he does. Let's see what he does with this new Xbox Series and these new studios. Let's see. Maybe he buys more, and maybe we have the Xbox 360 era all over again. And that will be amazing, because you have PlayStation on the top of their game, Nintendo at the top of their game, and Xbox climbing up the ladder. So you have competition. You have freaking 3 of the most popular video game makers of all time battling out and battling for our attention and money. And that's a great thing for us. So a lot of good can come out of this. So there could be some bad. So you got to remain, just like in life, you got to hold back a little bit of excitement and just wait. And a lot of people don't know how to do that shit. They're ready to fucking make videos. They read one paragraph of a story and they fucking run and make these videos just so that they can get some clicks. They create a crazy ass clickbait title, and then an hour later they're proven wrong. So you just gotta wait. Be patient. Just see how everything operates. Wait for these consoles to come out. That's the best thing to do. Wait for these games to come out. Wait for these consoles to come out, and see just how good they are. Or bad. You never know. We just have to wait. Just fucking wait. Be a little patient. So anyway, I know this was long. I didn't want to make an episode this long. But as I stated, I'm going to try to do these daily. The next one will be obviously tomorrow, and it will be a lot shorter. But who knows, man? There could be one later on. Who knows? The way this industry right now is currently running, like, we have a little over a month till these consoles launch. So some big techie sites and big YouTubers are starting to get review units of the Xbox Series X. So we're going to see videos and articles about that. And then when Sony decides that it's their turn to show their console, it's going to be a bunch of content for that too. And you never know. That could be, as a matter of fact, it could be happening as I'm talking. So let me get the hell out of here and check the news. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know in the comment section what you think about Microsoft buying Bethesda. If there's really, what does Sony have to do, if anything? And Nintendo. Everybody forgets about Nintendo. But anyway, I'm JVB. This has been another episode of the Post Game Report. Talk to you soon.